Yeah, he certainly does. I broke down some safety options not too long ago, did some video stuff on Instagram and things like that. And Chuck Clark is an intriguing option because, like you mentioned, they gave the bag to Marcus Williams. They brought in Kyle Hamilton. I know Baltimore sometimes likes to run 3 safeties, so we'll see how they plan to do that. But when you look at Chuck Clark, Philadelphia native, I believe, and they did move Hollywood Brown. So, whatever the situation is with Rager, if that's a landing spot.
Oh, can you get wow. Now, that would be some magic of how he could pull that off.
So that's if you're going to throw Rager and a pick at him and get Chuck Clark, a guy who hasn't missed a snap over the last 2 years, a guy who's been the on-field signal caller for them the last 2 years, and he still has 2 years left on a team-friendly deal.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. You got McMullen and McDonald hanging with you. And we've got a guest we haven't had on the show before, but we're looking forward to talking to him today. He's from Fox Sports The Gambler here in Philadelphia. Victor Williams joins us. Victor, Jody Mack, and John McMullen here. What are you betting on today?
Oh, man, not a Sixers win, that's for sure.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Come on, Joel's going to get through the protocol.
Yeah, we gotta
have some hope, Victor.
We better hope so, man. Harden assists, that's about all you can really bet on these days. Maybe Maxey threes. But yeah, that money line's not looking too hot right now.
Yeah, I don't know about threes. This team hasn't been shooting very well in the playoffs, but
not really.
All right, let's turn positive because everybody's excited about the Eagles right now after a draft, which, it's interesting. They had volume to start, but it turned into only 5 picks. But the 2 at the top specifically, and one wasn't even a pick, and that's A.J. Brown. Jordan Davis, A.J. Brown, 2 potential difference makers, Victor. What were your feelings coming out of that first day of the draft?
Yeah, day one, this had to be, and this might sound kind of blasphemous on my end, but this is the most impressive draft class I've seen in my lifetime. The first pick, the Jordan Davis pick, I was pretty excited about, but I was a known Kyle Hamilton guy. I was hammering the table for him. So to see him there was getting me excited. And then once Jordan Davis fell to the point where it was Baltimore there, and everybody and their mom knew that Baltimore was gonna grab him there because he fits their identity on defense. So once they traded up, we all knew it was going to be Jordan Davis, and you can't help but be excited for the player that he is. As I think he's one of the rare high floor, high ceiling prospects in this draft. You don't get too many of those in too many draft classes. And if you can have a guy who's going to, in his rookie year, project as a 2-down run stopper, and then later on maybe develop a pass rush game, get an arsenal in that area, it's hard not to like that pick, especially with Hargrave and Cox entering contract years. I believe Hargrave is a free agent next year.
Yes.
So you got to shore up that. You gotta get a big guy in the middle. The Eagles live and die by the trenches, as we all know. I think Jordan Davis doesn't fit a lot of schemes in today's NFL, but he fits what the Eagles do. So you have to like what they do there. And then A.J. Brown, I mean, what more can be said about how we're going and getting a top 10? I think he's a top 10 receiver, a superstar receiver in this league at just 24 years old. I was in the camp that believed that the Eagles wouldn't invest this kind of money in a receiver just because.
I think we all were.
Yeah.
That's how he said it, basically.
Exactly.
How he said it and lied to us.
Just because I thought, why would they do that if they're still unsure? I don't even know unsure if they're still trying to figure out the long-term stability of the QB position. And then, others would argue that now is actually the perfect time to go and invest money in that position while you're not committing so much money into the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts, what is it, 4 years, $6 million salaries. So you might as well do it now while you have the money. I just didn't think how he would do it. So to not only give up trade capital, but to give him that $100 million extension, I was baffled, but I can't be upset about it. John, I saw a tweet you put out yesterday about this could potentially be the best duo in Philadelphia. And I thought that to myself, but I didn't have the courage to tweet it. So you had the courage that I
got killed for it. But I said, as people read what they want to read, I said most talented.
Right.
Which I don't think there's much of a question. And everybody got into production. They haven't played a game. They haven't played. I get it. And the one I got most was Harold Harold and Mike Quick. And it's interesting because of my age, obviously. People still claim recency bias. Like, I don't know who Harold Carmichael is. But my point with Harold, when Harold was here, I think it was in year 12 when Mike got here. You know, AJ's 24.
Right.
Devonta's 23.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in theory, these guys should be together for a long time. Hopefully. Together. As you mentioned, Jody and I went through it a couple of days ago, and we had AJ at about, not top 10, but we had him 11, 12, somewhere in that range. So
top
right
12,
on the
bare
cusp,
minimum.
Yeah, right on the cusp of being a top 10 receiver. And then Devonta Smith, I've said this as well. I've got some you-know-what over this as well. I think ultimately he's going to be better.
Yeah,
he's going to be a better receiver than AJ Brown because, and you know, we always put the caveat, obviously they have to stay healthy, but because of his route running, because of his skill, I think he's ultimately going to be the better of the two receivers. I've been around a long time. Jody's been around longer. I've never seen two receivers like this. I saw Chris Carter and Randy Moss. I covered that team.
Right.
I wouldn't say they're the most talented I've seen
right.
in this town. It's the most talented wide receiver duo I've ever seen.
Yeah, when I had read the tweet and I was thinking to myself, because obviously I'm 28 years old now, so you know McMullen and Deshaun for me is obviously the first duo you think about, and of course the talent supersedes that, because I would argue that neither of them were true like WR1s. Like they each had their own skill sets, but I don't think each of them were true like alpha receivers. And then I was starting to think to myself, was like Mike Quick and Chris Carter, like in the late 80s, like does that count? I wasn't even around for that, but I know at the time, like Quick was injured when Carter was playing, and that whole
thing.
Plus
Chris had issues, and Chris he gives Buddy Ryan credit all the time for saving his career.
Yeah, I was trying to think back to before I was around, and I was like, does that like count? Like,
he wasn't the player he turned into when he was here.
Right. So McMullen and Deshaun is all I got. So I'm with T.O. and Pinkston, but obviously T.O. carried the torch there. But
yes, he certainly did.
But do yourself a favor, Victor. Look up Christy Jones.
Oh yeah, never heard of the guy.
he and Irving Fryer did have one really good year together, paired outside for the Philadelphia Eagles.
What year was that?
93, 94.
I was born in 93, so
there you go.
There was Christy Jones.
You got a little research to do. All right, I'm flipping back over on the defense. You mentioned Jordan Davis and the excitement level when the Eagles picked them, and it looked like they were going to get either he or Hamilton, but they had to trade up to ensure that. Because if they hadn't, then Washington may have taken Hamilton and Jordan Davis may have gone to the Ravens. So Howie Roseman did what he had to do to get the player that he specifically wanted. How much faith do you have that Jonathan Gannon, just for this year, we're not talking about 2023 or 24, 25, because according to Howie Roseman, they're just renting Jonathan Gannon, and he will probably be a head coach somewhere else in the National Football League this year. I need to see that first. But just for this year, how much faith do you have that with Hassan Reddick coming in, different piece, how to use him, Jordan Davis coming in, huge piece, how do you use him? How much faith do you have that the defensive coordinator is going to push all the right buttons with the defensive talent they've added?
Yeah, the second half of the season made me a little more confident. I think Gannon was better during that second half. They were playing guys like Garrett Gilbert and like Jake Fromm, so you had no choice but to be better during the second half of the season. But you have to try. You have to try to not you have to try to make Jordan Davis ineffective. Like if you're not using him the right way, then you just are either not playing him or he's injured. Like it's the only way he can't be effective. And I think the Eagles were third to last in sacks last year, so you have no choice but to be better with that. I think Hassan Reddick helps with that. They brought back Derek Barnett probably because the market allowed them to. Derek Barnett probably didn't think the market was going to be that lethal for him. And then we have to see how Brandon Graham is going to be after that Achilles. He's not getting any younger. And then Josh Sweat, who John, correct me if I'm wrong. Does he still have a snap requirement or a minimum?
No, he's all clear. In fact,
he can play all the snaps now. Huh?
Yeah. If you ask Josh about his knee injury, you will get a glare. As far as he is concerned, he is past it.
So
has he dropped you on Twitter, John McMullen?
Not that I know of, but I
Not
haven't
Josh
checked.
Sweat
Josh.
yet? Oh.
Zach Pascal blocked me, Victor.
He did? Oh man,
yeah.
you know his Instagram is private actually. Zach Pascal. He let me through.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and by the way, this is Jody's fault. Jody is the one who ripped Zach Pascal. I think he got me mixed up. Yeah.
This was before the AJ Brown trade, I assume, because
yeah.
he thought Zach Pascal was the only addition in the wide receiver rooms.
Yeah.
I wasn't following Zach Pascal on Twitter, so if he blocked me, I wouldn't know about it. He probably blocked us both, Johnny Mac.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Now you bring up an interesting, because Jody and I were big fans of Kyle Hamilton as well.
Mm-hmm.
I called him the best pure football player in this draft.
He was.
So there is a little bit of a concern from this standpoint. Now, the Eagles weren't interested. We know they don't take safeties that high in the draft. They've never taken a safety in the first round. But when these types of things happen, and I go all the way back to Brandon Graham, and, when Brandon was selected, Earl Thomas was the next on the board, and then it was Jason Pierre-Paul. So for years, it was like, oh, the Eagles could have had Earl Thomas. The Eagles could have had JPP. And then everybody fell in love with Brandon. Now everything's fine. But, if Kyle Hamilton turns into what we all think he could turn into, that could become an issue in the coming years. Even last year, Victor, it's sort of in a sleep right now because Justin Fields didn't play well last year. But if he ever turns the corner in Chicago, and the Eagles passed on him, there will be revisionist historians coming out of the woodwork. Any concern the Eagles made the wrong decision, should have taken Kyle Hamilton.
Maybe in the immediate future, because they need, there's an obvious hole at safety, even though some people are higher on Marcus Epps than I am. I think he played fine in the role he was in last year as a starter. I'm not sure. So we have to see what the Eagles end up doing there. I wanted him mostly because the hole was there, and I felt like we could have gotten by another year with the defensive line depth that was currently on the roster. But long term, Kyle Hamilton is going to be, as we project him to be the playmaking safety for the foreseeable future for the next 8 to 10 years. And Jordan Davis, depending on his conditioning and what kind of player he turns into, if he is only a guy that only plays, 40-50% of the snaps, and Kyle Hamilton is playing every down and making a difference for Baltimore, then people are going to be upset about it. But knowing the Eagles, they'll keep their depth on the defensive line. They'll make sure there's a stout rotation there, regardless of what happens. But from an impact standpoint, there's a very good chance that Hamilton could make the bigger impact than Jordan Davis.
All right, let me ask you where you've been heading off to, on what gambling websites you've been checking out. Everybody's got the ones that they play if you're signed up for multiple ones. Right now, the Cowboys are still the wagering favorite on most outlets to win the NFC East. How big a difference is there between them and the Eagles? Is it something worth looking at if you believe the Eagles are actually, on paper, your belief, and there may be some rooting interest behind it, the team that can win the NFC East this year? Is it a worthwhile look?
Yeah, I thought the Eagles had a chance at the division even before the draft. I thought they even with the addition of Kaiser White and Hassan Reddick, I thought they made some good moves to make some headway in the division. And the Cowboys got worse, losing Amari Cooper. I know that $20 million a year at the time wasn't feasible, but then you look at the way this wide receiver market fell, and then you start to look at it, and you're like, well, $20 million maybe probably wasn't that bad for Amari Cooper. Who did they lose? Was it Randy Gregory that faked them out and faked them out and went to Denver? And that whole thing. So they took a few steps back, and we don't know what Ezekiel Elliott's going to be. He's declining basically every year, but they still have Tony Pollard there. But they still have the best quarterback in the division, in my opinion. So as long as Hurts takes the step that we all hope he takes, and that the organization hopes he takes, then I think the Eagles can win the division, especially with the pieces that Dallas lost this offseason.
You mentioned, if Jalen Hurts takes that step forward, Victor, what is that step for you? Because I think people don't realize this is it, man. After this year, you got to start talking extension. And I say all this time, if you take Jalen Hurts and what he did last year, So Pro Bowl alternate, made the playoffs, solid season. That's worth $30 million in the NFL.
Today's NFL, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the Eagles want to pay $30 million for that. So it's a really, really difficult decision, because I always say this about Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to start saying it about Jalen Hurts. He's probably better than your quarterback, meaning he's top half, but is he ever going to get to that top 10 where you could say, okay, we can make a legitimate run at the Super Bowl? And how does he prove that other than making a legitimate run?
Well, from an extension standpoint, especially in today's NFL, right? Like, extensions are being given out based on potential rather than production these days, in my opinion. I feel like they gave one to Mailata because they project him to be here for the future. A.J. Brown just got paid. They project him to be here until he's 29, 30 years old. I think if he takes, for me, I just want to see, like, if I can see 4,000 passing yards, and the eye test is going to play a big role this year too, because you want him to throw with anticipation better. You want him to go through his progressions a little better, and you want him to trust his guys a little more, which I assume he will now that he has a big body target in AJ Brown. So if you can visibly see on the eye test that he is progressing, and I think he did so towards the end of last season, whether that's due to the ankle injury or whether he was literally progressing, that's neither here nor there. But if I can visibly see the progression, and you want the stats to take an uptick, you definitely want to see more than 16 passing touchdowns. You hope that he can throw, 22, 23, and he keeps the rushing offense up. But I think if he can improve his accuracy, and I think that 4K threshold is a big deal, especially since Carson was the only one to do it ever in franchise history. I think if I'm right. So I think that's a big deal for the Eagles. But if the extension comes up next season, I think they're going to pay him based on potential rather than production of what he did in 2022, because if they're going to pay him based on production, the contract shouldn't be $30 million or whatever it's going to be for him following next season.
All right. Speaking of contracts, and are they worth it? I've been saying now all week long here on the show, I think the Eagles erred. Let me put it correctly. The Eagles might have gotten shortchanged. Honey Badger decided to sign with the Saints. Now, he may have wanted to go home. It may have been the deciding factor. We know what the contract was: 3 years, $33 million, 16 guaranteed. So it's not a 3-year deal. It's more like a 2-year deal. And the second one would be a little bit of a costly dead cap hit, but not outrageous to a team that ate $33 million with Carson Wentz this year. Right. Not like they've never done it before. They could have done it again. Now, I don't know if he would have signed here anyway. We know they had a virtual meeting with him. He met actually with the Saints, and it may have been a foregone conclusion that the homeboy was going home and he wanted to play in Louisiana. And if that's the case, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Other than maybe offer him a little bit more. Yeah, and I think he got market value, not tremendously above, not tremendous. If the Eagles had to outbid the Saints, maybe it would have gotten into territory where you would have said that's a higher than average contract. How big a deal is it that the Honey Badger signed with the Saints and not with the Eagles, seeing as it seems to be those were the two teams it came down to?
Yeah, I was shocked at the contract personally. I thought he was commanding much more than that. So when I saw is this market value, John, for Matthew? I assumed he was going to get at least like 15.
Age, it's interesting because I always say Tyrann he's not even 30. He's going to turn 30. He's up. I forget when his birthday is.
You like to think
he's played a lot of football, Victor. He came very into the league at a very young age. He's rarely been hurt, so there's a lot of tread off the tire, as they say. I've heard a number of times people say he's not the same when it comes to speed. So things happen quickly in this league. I'm surprised he got a 3-year deal, to be honest. I thought he would be more in the 2-year range, and I thought the Eagles probably only wanted to give him 1 year. So they were probably not in the conversation, much like Stephon Gilmore, same type of thing.
Right.
Eagles would have been in that at 1 year a very cost-effective price. But that's sort of how they do business. The Eagles want to be in that range of 25, 26. That's who they're going to pay. You know,
substantial
that's
money,
the guys. That's the guys who are going to pay. And Jody brought this up the other day, so I'll bring it up to you. Chuck Clark, 26. The Ravens, we just talked about, they drafted Kyle Hamilton. They signed Marcus Williams. They paid him a ton of money. And that's sort of the range the Eagles were in on Marcus Williams, young player, still regarded as an ascending player. Chuck Clark. Why not Chuck Clark? Not the big name, not the Honey Badger big name. Joe Banner calls it the big name trap with guys like Tyrann Mathieu. Chuck Clark make more sense for the Eagles on the trade market.
Yeah, he certainly does. I broke down some safety options not too long ago, did some video stuff on Instagram and things like that. And Chuck Clark is an intriguing option because, like you mentioned, they gave the bag to Marcus Williams. They brought in Kyle Hamilton. I know Baltimore sometimes likes to run 3 safeties, so we'll see how they plan to do that. But when you look at Chuck Clark, Philadelphia native, I believe, and they did move Hollywood Brown. So, whatever the situation is with Rager, if that's a landing spot.
Oh, can you get wow? Now that would be some magic of how he could pull that off.
So that's if you're going to throw Rager and a pick at him and get Chuck Clark, a guy who hasn't missed a snap over the last 2 years, a guy who's been the on-field signal caller for them the last 2 years, and he still has 2 years left on a team-friendly deal. So it's ideal. He's still under contract. He's under team control. It's a team that moved a speedy receiver and Rager. They need options. They have Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. There's not many pass catching options over there once you move Hollywood Brown. So they're in a place where they can take a risk on Rager and maybe get rid of the odd man out at safety.
Here's the problem with that. If you're going to trade a pick for Chuck Clark, it'll probably be around the third.
Third is what I'm
assuming. If
you
add Jalen Rager to the deal, it probably goes to a second.
You got to pay somebody to take Rager.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at here. So
now you brought up Jody before, and Victor brings up a good point. Chuck was that leader in the secondary. The Eagles need a leader on defense as well. Well, that's a good bit. That's a good bit. I don't know if the Ravens want to get rid of him because he's a good
I didn't
player.
either. When I first put it out there, I had no idea if they had any desire whatsoever to move him, and they may not. I've not seen his name floated out there as a trade rumor or anything along those lines. It just was a figure thing to me because they've got 2 new safeties, both of which
they love running 3 though. Clark is the perfect third guy for them, so I wouldn't be shocked if they decide not to move him at all. But if they do, can't find better options, because what are the other options? You have Tart from San Francisco, who dropped the pick in the NFC Championship game. You have Deshaun Gibson is out there.
Isn't he the midfielder for Ted Lasso's team?
Yes, he is. Jamie Tart. Yes.
I get confused. Football. Sometimes I get confused. I apologize.
But you have Gibson, who's 31 and is on the back end. Landon Collins is a post-June 1st cut, but he's a linebacker these days.
Yeah. Big name trap with Landon Collins.
And he's been to 2 NFC East teams. You don't really want to deal with a third. So the safety options are getting slim. So is it the Marcus Epps and Kayvon Wallace show? And then you look at CB2. Are they going to run CB2 by committee with Tay Gowan and McPherson and some of these undrafted guys with Josh Jobe and Goodrich? Or do they entertain guys like Rhodes and Trey Waynes, who are both banged up, and no Gannon? So the shoe fits, but the secondary needs some attention unless Sirianni likes the young talent he has, which I'm inclined to believe he does. So
I put this to John yesterday, so I'll put it to you today, Victor. And John actually corrected me, said, "No, Jody, there's no such thing as cross-training in the secondary.
I doubt it.
If you go to another position, they make the decision. You're A or B. You're not A, B. You have to pick or choose one of the 2 sides."
There's a few guys. Malcolm played everywhere.
Well, Malcolm, they had to. They had no option.
There's a very few. It's not like the offensive line where they specifically, try to cross-train. That's what I was trying to.
But right now, as per the guys who are on the roster, they have about 42 cornerbacks and 4 safeties.
Yep.
So I'm just looking at quote unquote DBs and going, which of the many cornerbacks that they have that they had on the roster before the draft and the undrafted free agent signings, which they signed several cornerbacks and
3 of them.
One safety. maybe there's one in the group that could be genuinely moved to the safety. If it's got to be a hard and fast move and you can't cross-trade them, and John tells me they just don't do that, okay, I believe you. Who's the most likely candidate of the present-day rostered cornerbacks who can get some times and maybe make a switch in position and open everybody's eyes at safety?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you who it's not going to be, because I see like fans screaming for like Maddox to move there, but they paid him to like be the nickel guy, like to be the long-term solution there. So why
cause two problems? Then you got nobody to play nickel.
Yeah, exactly. Like what is I don't understand, but you know how fans get, they want to, you know, they want to shift positions and plug holes. But I get it. He has the range and has like the playmaking to do it. But he's the solidified nickel there after he struggled on the outside. There's no sense in moving him when he finally figured out who he was. So let's not do that. If I had to pick one of these guys to play safety that's currently on the roster, that's not like a solidified safety, I would probably lean towards, and I know this is kind of a reach because they are undrafted guys, but Job and Goodrich probably have the most talent, like raw talent, as far as playing that position, because Job has done it in college and Goodrich has done it to an extent in college. And Job was supposed to be a fourth rounder, I believe, but then he had foot surgery in December that kept him out of the college playoff game. And he did struggle a little bit in 2021 because he played most of his career across from Pat Surtain. So once he leaves, it's an adjustment period. And Goodrich has some skills too. So if they're going to battle it out there, if they're not going to be, you know, cornerback 2 or what have you, I would try one of those guys out at safety and see if they stick.
Yeah, I saw a number of scouts sort of project Josh as a safety.
Mm-hmm. So he has the build for it.
Yeah. That's probably a good name. I did ask the Eagles specifically, is he coming in as a safety or corner? They said corner, but that could change after this weekend.
We'll get them in rookie camp and switch them all up.
And a lot depends on, you know, who can they get. Maybe if they get James Bradbury, they start they start thinking about moving guys. Or if they get a safety, you know, maybe they don't think about start moving guys. So there could be a domino effect there. I do think you're going to see a veteran defensive back at some point, like last year when we saw.
That doesn't mean he'll start, but you need that guy in here.
And they need somebody to start. They do, because they need a veteran presence, whether it's on the back end at corner, as we saw with Steve Nelson last year.
What if Slay goes down? Like, what happens? Like,
don't even say trouble. That.
Yeah, that's something like you have to think about these situations. Like, if God forbid, I know he's an Iron Man and he plays through a lot of stuff. But if he goes down,
even last year, Darius had, I think, 2 concussions
and the whole bit. And
so you start getting worried about concussions as well.
He's turned 31 now. Like Father Time waits for nobody. The decline will happen at some point.
Well, I'll end it there with you, Victor. And before I do, follow Victor on Twitter at the Philly Pod. You can read him at thelibertyline.com. You can hear him on Fox Philly The Gambler. When you talk about the draft, we'll end it there. You got difference makers, but you lost volume. So when we all had the Eagles with 10 picks and we said, well, they're going to take a running back at some point. They're going to take a tight end at some point. They ended up getting Grant Calcaterra. They're going to take a corner. They're going to take a safety. Any concern that they didn't have that volume on day 3? Or are you happy with the undrafted guys? Because they spent some significant money. You brought up Josh Jobe, the kid from Clemson, Carson Strong at quarterback, Kennedy Brooks at running back. They had a big undrafted free agent budget. Did they get enough quality day 3 type bodies?
Well, my one knock against the Jordan Davis stuff, like when it happened, was that they gave up like 4 picks, like 2 5th-rounders and like a later pick just to move up 2 spots. So when I saw it, I was like, that's a lot of capital to move up 2 spots.
I said that too, Victor, when it happened. But then I realized, okay, at 18, they needed 101, because my actual prediction in Sports Illustrated was they would trade 15 and 101 to get up to 13 to take Davis. So the only thing I got wrong was the package. But then they needed that 101 pick to get A.J. Brown. So then it made more sense. But they did lose volume. They did lose volume, and that part could be a concern.
Yeah, that's why I was indifferent I'm a little better about it now because like who am I to argue against like Jason Kelsey's like handpicked people, but like I was indifferent about the Cam Jurgens thing because, and I know that like Booth was off the board and Brisker was off the board, so whoever you did take in the secondary was likely going to be a reach at that point. But I was so focused on secondary in the second round that when the Jurgens pick happened, I was like, oh, why are we like what is going on here? But then you get mentally. I like flip the Nakobe Dean and the Jurgens pick in my mind, and then like it helps me mentally sit at ease a little better. But I think that the undrafted guys are very good value because Goodrich got a like bigger deal than most undrafted guys get. I believe. I think they spent like decent money.
Oh
on
yeah,
him.
yeah.
So that's not a guy too many undrafted guys get. So you like to believe he's going to carve out some type of role on this team. So if it wasn't for them like jumping on like 3 undrafted corners within minutes after the draft, I know they got the quick kid out of Duke. I forget his name. Blackwell, I think.
Josh Blackwell, yeah.
Yeah, they got him. They signed a Jerry Howard out of Towson yesterday. He's a big bodied back. So they got some options. But how
they got a power forward from Penn State coming in to try out.
A powerful like basketball? Like never played football before?
No, he played football in high school.
Oh, I was like, well, they're taking some like unconventional routes this year. Like Devin Allen, like what are your expectations for him? Is he gonna stick? Like what's he gonna be?
Yeah. Now I gotta get his name real quick. It's for all you college basketball fans, it is John Harrar, Harrar. 6'9", 240, Penn State power forward, coming in to try out as a tight end. You look excited, Jody.
Well, I know
who wants J-Jaw spot though.
I know who wants him to win a job. The headline writers around the city. Because Horror Show writes its.
I can't wait to make the merch for that.
That's just me. Last thing for me, Victor. John and I debated this a little bit earlier. Will Nakobe Dean here in year number 1 play more snaps at middle linebacker or outside linebacker?
But he's an off-ball guy, right? So for the most, like he's. Well, we have to see like how confident are we that like he's fully healthy? Number one, like
right.
I know.
No, I'm saying when he's on the field, don't know how many snaps he's going to play. I think he's going to stay healthy, but when he plays, more middle or more outside.
I'll give him middle because he is legit like he was the heart of the Georgia defense, and I think Kaiser White will be better in an outside role. I think Nakobe Dean will play more snaps in the middle linebacker and sort of command.
TJ gets no love, man.
He's the guy you forget
and
about.
I'm a TJ guy, but sorry, he got trumped.
Yeah,
they got the best middle linebacker in the draft. What are you gonna do? Sit him?
I'm a Davion Taylor guy personally.
That undrafted label follows guys like to an unfair degree.
He's tied to Alex Singleton. Yeah, that's why.
I got to cover John Randall, man. I'm like, at some point, you got to drop the undrafted stuff.
I'm an Edwards guy, but I'm just a bigger Nakobe Dean guy.
As you should be. Like Edwards is fine for like when you had Alex Singleton and like Nate Gary here. Like of course now as the third linebacker.
Right. I'm going to change. I always say Marcus Epps is the most disrespected member of the Eagles from the fan base's perspective.
He deserves to start next year. You think?
Yeah. Well, right now. But if they bring in Chuck Clark, no.
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna ship that to TJ Edwards. TJ gets no respect, man. None. Good football player. Good player.
He's the third best linebacker on this team now. Unless you're not a Kaiser White guy. Do you not like Kaiser White?
Hey, I like Kaiser. I like Kaiser, but 1 year, the contract tells you a lot.
Well, I think he's underrated too. He has an arsenal. I don't want to say arsenal.
He's definitely athletic. And he's the type of linebacker the Eagles have been looking for, sort of the modern linebacker that can cover former safety, former rover. But hey, nobody cares about run support in this league. Nobody. And certainly not in May. I tell Jody this all the time. And then they get to December and they're like, oh, we can't stop the run. I wonder why.
Run over. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, if you ask Jalen Reagor, who's the most disrespected Eagle, he'll tell you Jalen Reagor. So I'd be
very stunned if he's on this roster. I know, John, you probably know some stuff I don't, but I would be very shocked if he was here next in these coming months.
He's still here. He and Andre Dillard still here. Everybody had him out of town.
He tried to trade him during the draft. He tried to move during the draft.
How he's playing hardball with Jalen. He wants something in return.
That might be.
Good luck with that. John, I do have one question for you. As far as linebackers, because you have Kaiser and Nakobe Dean, two guys that I haven't seen like cover as much ground. I'm probably disrespecting Michael Kendricks a little because he could move.
Oh, Michael could move.
Yeah, he could move. So he probably could cover some ground. But like other than him, what was the last? And I do have a hot take after this. But who was the last linebacker you've seen cover some ground like in the way that Nakobe Dean can in that defense?
Here, Michael. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah.
I said it when they drafted. I think when they signed Kaiser, Michael could move. Yeah. His brother too. His brother's maybe the best coverage. Yeah, linebacker in the NFL right now.
Oh wow.
But yeah, Michael could really run. But Nakobe's more instinctive, way more instinctive than Michael Kendricks. Here's
my Nakobe Dean stance. He's a slightly smaller, because I know you got to say that, because otherwise if I make the comparison and I don't put the qualifier out there, people will kill me.
Yes, they will.
He's slightly smaller Jeremiah Trotter.
Oh, that was my hot take. You stole it.
We know how good Jeremiah Trotter was, but Trotz was a big guy.
Trot was a huge guy. Trot was downhill.
Big dude.
Yeah, he was a legit run. Yeah, he was a run support guy.
Yeah, that was my hot take. My hot take was that if the medicals check out and he stays healthy, he has a chance to be the most impactful linebacker here since Trotter. That's it. I'm living by it. I'm dying by it.
You and I together on that one, Victor. Victor, appreciate you coming on, bud. We will certainly get you back on again. Did a good job today. Thank you much. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon enough.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
You got it.